Hey there everyone, and welcome to the start of this series which I did last year, reviewing all the monsters that came out in 2019. Now we're going to look at all the ones that came out in 2020. I'm a little bit late doing this, but basically it's going to go until all the monsters that came out last anniversary, which was the end of October in 2020. So all the monsters that came out in the year between, the previous anniversary and then the one in 2020. We're going to do this element by element just like last year, and there's going to be a few minor changes from the way I did this last year, trying to put a bit more focus on the bits that are probably more interesting, more important, but ultimately we're going to have the same general plan. So the first section, talking about the themes and sub-themes in that element, I went through them a fair bit last year, so I'm only really going to focus on the bits that have changed from the year before. So yeah, anyway, that's talking about the archetypes that are built into those elements. They generally bridge multiple elements, but I think it's kind of fun and interesting to look at what an element does in general. The second section talks about all the new monsters. We review the new monsters, I say what's powerful, what isn't powerful, how to use them, that kind of thing, and in the order that's shown there. 2020 was the year of waifu, which I will talk about in a second, but yeah, we've got waifu in the game now. 2019 was the year of piercing. I would say, waifu was the defining thing of this year. And then lastly, the third section, talking about what the elements gained in general power level of the monsters that that have come in, and how it stands, and what I think maybe it could have in the future. So, as with all my videos, there are links in the description. You can go to any part of this video with those. So this video is going to be longer than the later ones, and oh hey, by the way, my face is going to be in these. I thought it'd be kind of fun to just, put my face in, because it's a presentation, you're going to be sat on random screens for a while, and I don't think I've shared my face on YouTube before, so anyway, I'm going to be here. Right, so this video is longer than the other videos because I'm going to talk about some of the general stuff first. We're going to sit on this slide for a little while just to talk about things. I could have pointed out way more things than went on this screen, but I tried to pick out just the key points. So firstly, the waifu. I have been quite vocal about how I hate the waifu. I think it's completely inappropriate to have animated girls in bikinis and that kind of stuff in a game that could be played by kids, or, I'm not interested in that as an adult, but the market has gone that way, so, we just have to accept it, and I think we'll just look back on it another time in the future and just be like, wow, really, the market was like that at some point. But yeah, that's all I really want to say on it. I don't want to complain every time we're reviewing a waifu. And in terms of the lore of Neo Monsters, they're all goddesses from some distant land, and we've had a bit of story with them. We may have some more, but yeah, they're all goddesses apparently, and they're all mythics as well. They're the money-making mythics. So yeah, the second point to make here, monsters now have types. This is really cool. So I think previously monsters just had elements, but now we've got types as well. So we also, to go along with that, basically they're things to build around. So things get stat boost based on whether or not they have that certain type with them, which we'll see, as we look through some of the monsters this year. Some of them care about it, so they might get stats boosts. They may get to use Union attack, which has basically anything with Union, I think, will matter. It will care about whether or not you have a teammate with the same type as the monster that it is. And then we've got type killer moves. So yeah, really cool. I love that new dimension. I think it's important to branch out like that, and it gives them a lot more design space for new monsters. So the third thing, every year we get a couple of new archetypes come into the game. This year it was Mark and Energy. They both kind of existed already. Mark was a very minor thing. There was very little Mark, and Energy was there were some energy monsters, but there was no kind of real need to use them for they didn't synergize at all. So Mark is kind of generally in Shadow, maybe a little bit in Fire or Earth. It's spread out a little bit, but I think generally in Shadow. And Energy is much more Storm than anything else. Which we'll see in those videos. So fourth is the Crescendo buff. Now this is, of all the sort of buffs and nerfs, I think this is the most significant for sort of overall looking at it. Crescendo now charges at triple the speed. The first attack is still the base amount. So the first attack is very, very weak, but it only takes about a couple of hits after then and it starts getting big. Tripling the speed was a huge buff, and it's made them a lot more viable than they were in the past. So next we have the move T reduction overhaul. So previously, you only really needed to get a monster to +5. From +5 to +9, the reduction was tiny. It was like the amount of like +4 to +5 in those next 4, which meant that ultimately you didn't need so many legendary potions. However, it was a bit confusing when it came to Mythics, because with the shards they became +3 and then +6 and then +9, and the seconds reduction on the moves was like, it was inconsistent. Now, they didn't change the speed, the entrance speed of monsters, interestingly, so you get more speed in those first few potions. However, for the moves seconds, it only matters at +3, +6 and +9. So yeah, anyway, that's how that's changed. And then next we've got shiny monsters. So if you didn't know, shiny monsters were a very early on idea as a fix for getting duplicates. So the idea was that in certain festivals and stuff, if you hatched a particular monster and had a shiny version, then it was a 1/4 chance of you getting the shiny and a 3/4 chance of you getting the non-shiny. Now this was a fun idea, except that in practice it didn't work, because people who were getting the duplicates, who were annoyed about getting duplicates, they'd get a duplicate, they'd get the shiny, and well, for one thing it was like a 1 in 4 chance of getting the shiny, and then they didn't actually want to use it because functionally they're the same. So they have one monster at, say, +5, +6, whatever, and they're like, do I really want to use 5 or 6 potions on this new monster just so I can, it can be as good as the other one? It felt like a waste. So people didn't really catch on. Shiny monsters didn't catch on, and they basically stopped putting them into any eggs. So we weren't actually even able to get these shiny monsters for a few years. So now what they did is they've redesigned them. They've done a huge overhaul. They've generally put in the shop now, and shiny monsters are very cool. So you can't use them with the same monster. So say you have shiny Galio Dragon. You can't use Galio Dragon and shiny Galio Dragon in the same team. And the movesets are generally like a little twist spin on the original idea, usually with the same stats. We'll see when we get to them. But they're very cool. It's an interesting idea of having a look at this old moveset and what can they do with it to do something, modernise it, or just make it fun in another way. Shiny monster's very cool. Then we've got anti-sleep stuff. So of all the stuff which is kind of high impact on the game, I think anti-sleep stuff being a very prevalent thing this year, lots of insomnia and other stuff like that, it will have shifted things. It would have made sleep quite a lot weaker. Something like Dreamy Entrance in the past used to be very, very powerful. And I think Dreamy Entrance is now kind of maybe a little bit hit and miss. We'll have to see how much of this insomnia and sleep immunity stuff comes into PvP, how much people use it. And also in PvE, if there's loads of insomnia monsters with Purify, then Sleep Lock and stuff like that is going to be much harder to pull off. Anyway, next one, slow monsters. So in general, I think across all the elements, slower monsters were brought out this year. I think predominantly it's to do with Mythics, because a lot of Mythics, they're either built to be kind of tanky, or they're just very, very strong that they can't be high speed because they'd be too powerful with their moves or whatever. So generally slower monsters have come out this year, and I quite like that. I think the game, in some respects, you do need to kind of slow it down and kind of hold back any power creep, anything crazy fast. So I approve of that quite greatly. And lastly, we have the super epic revamps. They've been loads. Before making this series, I had a few people asking me, they knew I was going to make the series, and they were saying oh, you should include this monster, it's been revamped and stuff. And I'd be there was so many, I'm already going to go through so much in this, that I decided there's only going to be 2 which I'm going to mention, Snow Hulk and Ogre Master. I think looking forward to the future, these are probably going to be the highest impact super epics for the future, as we'll see when we talk about them. So those are all the points I was going to make. There are a few other ones which I could have added on, which I can't think of now, so it's good, because I'm not going to mention them. These 2 other images we've got here, I'm going to talk about the one in the top right first of all. This one is results from a Link special rule PvP earlier in the year. So this happened, I think, around June or so, so a few months before the anniversary, and it's got some some aspect to play into what the developers then designed for the future, because as you can see, Storm is very, very low. Now, I should point out, first of all, Earth is sort of artificially inflated here because Kana Shogun was very popular at the time. Underdog has since been nerfed, but at the time it wasn't. And trying to make a Link team is actually pretty difficult. You need to have a lot of monsters in that element in order to make a strong Link team. Kana Shogun, however, kind of did a lot of it for you. So you could use Kana Shogun, you could use then the epics that were Earth, and that would kind of make up a lot of the Link things. It wasn't like had to be 4 of that element, it was like 10 of the monsters in your team, I think, had to be that element. So Earth was easier to do, and I think it got inflated by that. And I think also Storm may have been deflated a little bit by the prevalence of those Kana Shogun front lines that just devastated Link Storm. However, when you look at it, you can see that Water and Holy are definitely at the top. Earth probably would have been just behind them had it not been for the Kana Shogun inflating it. Then you've got a bit of a drop to Fire and Shadow, and then lastly Storm is very low. Now, last year's series of this, I talked about Shadow being kind of really good in PvE and not very well suited to PvP. This shows it quite nicely. I am not too surprised that Shadow is second from the bottom, and Storm being at the bottom, while the archetypes and stuff that Storm have are very well suited for PvP, I do think that Storm kind of hasn't had the support for a little while until this year. This year, Storm has had an enormous amount of support, and it's got some very powerful things. Right now, there's like a couple of monsters which, even more than a couple of monsters that are in Storm that people want nerfed, and I'm kind of with them on that as well. But yeah, so Storm needed the support. If you can, look at this as a statistic, it shows that it seems to need some support. So it got that after there. And I wouldn't be too surprised if... the thing is, Shadow's got so many monsters. I think at some point Shadow's going to get some support for PvP. But yeah, anyway, we'll see. So I thought that was a fun little statistic or table to share with you. The other table, or series of tables here, this is not something that I'm really going to go through that much at all. I just thought I'd share it with you because I made it, and I used it for my own numbers before, looking for making this series. What you're looking at, if you look at, say, the stats table here, you're looking at full attack, standard attack, rounded, standard defense, full defense. The stats arrangement split by the element, and those numbers are all percentages. So you can they all add up to 100 if you look across by element, and it kind of shows how things are distributed across that element. It's the exact same for the speed bit there. You've got the different speed ranges along the top, and then the percentages of those things. So looking at these two things, basically what you can pick out quite quickly, hopefully, is that in terms of the stats, there are two elements which are tankier. They are the Holy and Earth. They kind of stand out as the tanking elements. Then you've got Storm and Water as the kind of more mid-range elements. And then you've got Fire and Shadow as the more aggressive elements. That's generally how those are. Then looking down at the speed, I think it is Earth and Holy being the slow ones. Then you've got, if I can pick it out, Shadow is pretty slow. I can't remember this exactly, I might have to look at it now. And then, anyway, Storm and Water are like the fastest, basically. And Fire is up there too. I think that's right. Forgive me if I'm getting this wrong. I didn't plan first saying that. Anyway, and then we come to the new monsters at the top. So this is talking about the new monsters in 2020, split up by their element, obviously, and then being a 0 to 4 star, super epic, a legendary, or a mythic. So this compared to last year, in terms of the new monsters I'm talking, there are more mythics than there were last year. And in fact, those legendaries, 9 of those 24 are actually the shinies in the shop, which I'm not too happy about. The fact that like 1/3 of the new legendaries were actually monsters coming out in the shop. There weren't that many new legendaries that came out in eggs, and in terms of like meta shifting stuff, legendaries have more of a shift than mythics. Like mythics are only really available to big spenders. I don't like it that loads of the new monsters are only coming out for big spenders and for the shop as well. Like you can only pick like about 2 of them a year. So yeah, I think there should be more legendaries coming out in Higgs. That's my personal opinion. It's what I'm going to be trying to influence if I can. I think compared to previous years, we had so many fewer legendaries coming out. In fact, there were fewer super epics this year as well. I don't like this shifting towards mythics. Like, if they need to make that many mythics to make money and stuff, fine. But like, still give us loads of legendaries and super epics. I think there shouldn't be too much focus taken off them. We still need them coming out. And in fact, the release schedule of this year was kind of weird. It was like, we'd get periods of time where we got loads of new monsters coming out, and then a period with like very little, and like, you know, just kind of one slapped in there to kind of bridge the gap. And then we'd have another period where we get loads coming out. And I think those were like coupled with promotion stuff for advertising the game and everything. They're clearly trying to do stuff to grow the player base and all the rest of it. And it's fine, but like in terms of stability and making the game work well in the long run, I think we do probably need more legendaries. And yeah, anyway, that's enough point I'm going to make about that. Looking at the elements here, you can see already, you know, which elements got the most support. Probably a standout for you is Holy. Holy got very few monsters this year. Most of them got like, I'm talking about the legendaries and mythics specifically. Most of them got 8 to 10. Holy got 5. It's really, really not good, but we'll see when we get to it whether those monsters are actually any good. Right, so moving on from that. We got the types table. Right, so this is something that's taken from my guide on the forum, where I have all the monsters, all the legendaries and mythics listed with some statistics around them. It's like for reference stuff, basically. And this is all the monsters and their types. So most notably, the most common types are Dragon, Robotic, Humanoid, Beast, and Phantom. Dragon stands out by quite a long way. About 1/5 of the monsters in the game are Dragon. That is Legendaries and Mythics. And so when we get a Dragon Killer move, we don't have one now, but that's going to be good. It's going to be better than like an element killer move, like, you know, I don't know, Kinslayer, Counter-Strike, that type of thing. A Dragon Killer move will actually target a lot of things. And then some of the elements have their specific type, which they have way more than the other elements do. So Holy has a load of angels, Water has a load of aquatic, like, they're no surprise really. Then Demon has a load of, Shadow has a load of demons and phantoms. Not much surprise there. There are phantoms in other elements though. And then Earth has a lot of plants, no surprise. Storm has robots. There are robots in other elements, but Storm has quite a lot of the robots. And then Rock seems to be predominantly in Earth and Fire. Those are the ones that kind of get picked out there. You can see Dragons as well, they're a bit more in Fire, Holy and Shadow. And then like Beasts, Beasts are a bit split up. Bugs are more in Earth and other stuff. Those bugs, there's at least one in every element. That's actually because of the moths. The moths I've counted as bugs in each of the elements. However, they all start as a pupa, which is technically Earth. Earth definitely has bugs, which is, again, no real surprise. So thematically, all pretty cool and works out there. Just a little a bit of insight into the types, since types are new this year. So now we have we go on to the stuff which I'll have for each of the elements as we go through this video. We've gone through all the general talk, now let's have a look at Earth itself. So these are all the monsters, all the stuff shown, again taken from my guide that I mentioned just a second ago. This year we got 5 new mythics, 5 legendaries, 4 super epics, and 2 0 to 4 star monsters. Quite a lot of support. Earth was on the upper end on the number of monsters made for it this year, which I was slightly surprised about because last year they got so much support. They like double the number of legendaries and mythics they had. But yeah, this year we still got quite a few monsters. And then as we talked about, I'm not really going to talk about this because I talked about it a minute ago, but the Earth is a more tanky, slow element compared to the other ones. The only interesting thing to note here is that Earth now has helped a little bit by the elements in general getting tankier monsters. Earth has actually got an average number of more on the attacking monsters, which is surprising to see, but that is the way it's shifted very slightly with these new monsters and how things are shaping out. Earth has become kind of a bit more aggressive. But yeah, still generally low speed and high defense, that's what they are. And comparing Holy and Earth, which are the two tankier elements, Earth has more of the super tanks than Holy does. Holy just has, like, generally everything's tanky. Earth is like super tanks, and then also has like some attacking stuff. Moving on to the themes. The first theme is the throw theme. This is, probably the most common theme in Earth. Earth has loads of throw monsters. Some of them are a bit outdated, but it can do a lot of stuff with this. Aggression, it's got some catapult stuff in there. I'm actually missing... Oh, no, I've got Camillazid in there. It can do healing, support, all the rest of it. Throws are quite a cool archetype to build around when you can do it well. You need, I think I said last year, I was like, it revolves around key monsters. Now there's actually quite a lot of good monsters for it, so you can kind of avoid the less good ones, and it's going to work out pretty nicely. So that's Throw. Then we've got Retribution. This is a theme that was made last year. On the right we have the monsters from last year, and then on the left from before that, so you can see it really, became a theme last year, doubling in their numbers, and there's just a lot of Retribution in there. Not really much to say about this, but it's pretty powerful. It works well. Retribution in general is a strong archetype for PvP. It works very well, so Earth doing that definitely gives it a hold in PvP. Next we have the Protector theme. Not so many monsters, but Earth has some very strong protectors here. Earth likes protectors, and it works very nicely with the Retribution theme because you can... you want those protectors to die first, generally that's how it is, and then that's going to charge Retribution on the other monsters, and everything works out very nicely. Nice synergy. And then another thing which Earth has is Mortar. So this is just a sub-theme. There's not a whole lot of monsters, but there aren't a whole lot of Mortar monsters in general. Earth, why I think this element is the one that really does it best, or supports it best anyway, is because it's got the biggest support monsters for it. Botanic and Sarcosphinx are both great support for Mortar teams, Sarcosphinx having the Cannon Accelerate too, and then Armadiator has both a knockback and a pullback, which gives a lot more flexibility to Mortar. So Mortar seems to be centered mostly in Earth, but it is split across the elements. And then we've got the Poison sub-theme. This is something that definitely came out last year more. They expanded upon it, and I'd say it's not really something which you can use or build around too easily. There's obviously the combo of Oak Thulu and Arboratus, but generally it hasn't really got there yet. So we'll have to see if, over the course of this video, there are lots of new Earth Poison monsters to really make this work. Now it's time for the good bit. Let's have a look at the new monsters. So first up we have Shiny Jade Boa. So this is an epic protector that has Stun Absorber and Hold Ground. That's how it was built. And the shiny version, basically what it does is it removes Protect and it gives it Link Taunt. So this is a protector without a protector weakness, which is very, very nice. And ultimately, otherwise, it's pretty much the same. Now the thing is, it loses Purify, which is a 50-second move, for Link Pure Cure, which is a 100-second move. Yes, it heals, but I'm not too sure about this. I think generally this is just a little bit better than the normal Jade Boa, because it doesn't have the protector weakness. But I think on the whole, it's nothing too incredible. It's just, for an epic, it's quite good. It's it's tanky, it does the job. The one downside as well, I think, that I have to say with Link Taunt is that it is 50% chance to block, not 100%, so it won't always work when you want it to. So I'm not fully convinced. I think it's just slightly better than the normal Jade Boa. So next we have Musashoid. Now this came as part of the Special Rocks kind of cycle. Didn't get it in every element, but here's the Earth one, and this one is bloody powerful. It is reasonable speed with Poison Gas, and that means that it does a relatively good job at supporting poison teams. Now, obviously, it doesn't do anything else with its moves, but that's what it can support, and otherwise it's going to be all about the passives. Now, the passives, Auto Protect and Payback Revenge, absolutely so insane for a 7-cost monster. This one is really, really good for, say, using an Ultimate Challenge, or anything where there's super buffed enemies, as just a low-cost thing of reliably getting rid of an enemy. It's very, very good there. And then in PvP, people like this too. It obviously works better in poison teams, but in any team where you're going to revive it, or you just need a protector in the way, but you don't really want it to stick around for ages, you just want to get a bit of value out of a protector as something that's going to protect your other monsters so they can get going or whatever. This is actually a pretty solid option for that. So It does get countered by a few things. There's counters to Payback Revenge, there's counters to Protectors that bypass them. So it's not an absolute guarantee, and that's why something like this is somewhat balanced, and it's not just like super powerful, but Musashoid is very, very good. Next up we have Abyss Soldier Bulwark, or Bullock. I think it's called Bullock. Anyway, this one is rated pretty highly. Now the reason why I've rated it so highly, you may be questioning why, because this is not one that's like as exciting as other super epics that go, but I think this is subtly really good. And the reason being is that it is very, very tanky. So as with all the Abyss Soldiers, when they're alone they get their stats buffed. This one, when it's with other Abyss Soldiers, it gets its defense buffed. So either way, its defense is buffed, and it's got the rounded kind of stats there. Now with the 50% buff, this becomes, what would that be, like 1,800 onto that, so 5,400 defense. That's like way beyond full defense for a monster. It's got reasonable HP as well, because it's got the lower speed on a super epic. So this tanks pretty nicely, and it's got Life Flip Friend, so if it does get hit down, it can technically heal itself up. But yeah, it's going to be tanky, it's going to be hard to get rid of, and it hasn't got any killer weakness. And then it's got the 250-second Mega Bomb. 250-second Mega Bomb is like pretty legit. You can get to that not too badly, and certainly in PvE you can build around it very easily to get to that. And then PvP, I would say, okay, sure, top level PvP, you're not really going to be just shoving this into team and getting value, but it's definitely a payoff in super epics which you could go for. So yeah, the Life Flip Friend, pretty nice move. Solo Life Flip Enemy, now that's an interesting one. Putting an enemy to 1 HP that's on 4 HP, it's pretty good. Now there's no kind of amazing way of passing 250 seconds, but I'm sure you can work out to make that work. And really strong super epic. I think this is one of those ones that will never really get used loads, but could potentially see some great use in some teams. And I say it wouldn't get used that much, mainly because I think most people won't try and use it. But anyway, this next one, Rhino Titan, this one's very cool. So in terms of the tier list positions, I've put this slightly lower, mainly because it's a build around type monster. You have to put in quite a lot of work to make this work well, but the payoff is enormous. So the cool thing that's going on here is the excessive force with a 70-second move that, if you've got the excessive force, that's going to one-shot things, and piercing one-shot things. So yeah, all you have to do for that, this is the problem. 150 seconds passing, okay, you got to, it's not too bad, but you've got to put in a bit of effort for that. Then also you need to have the union going on, which is Robot. Robots in Earth, they don't really exist, and you need the link for the Link Survivor Plus, so like somehow you need to do, kind of Earth, but then maybe a bit of Storm in there for the union, but then, so union you need 1 robot, but then Link Earth you need to have 3 Earth monsters. So trying to line that up is a bit tricky. Maybe with time there'll be certain monsters that come out that are like really good support for it, but it's going to be a little bit tricky to line that up. Otherwise it's got Stone Grinder and True Hit, which are very powerful moves. They don't matter that it has lower attack, it doesn't need excessive force, it will just work with those, but if it does have the excessive force then obviously they become piercing. So, nice little sweeper that if you build around it can work out really, really well. And having reasonable defense means that despite it being a super epic, it is going to actually survive quite nicely. Switch Friend there, the use of it is, if you didn't manage to line it up, if it didn't work out, then you can remove it from the battlefield and put something else in there. So, excellent design. I think this is probably among the top 5 best design monsters that came out this year. I loved it when I saw it. It's just, I don't know how much it's actually going to be used because it's quite tricky to get to use. The reason why it's lower on the tier list for general, that it is PvP, even though it's kind of technically easier to kind of build around and make it work in PvE, is because the PvE tier list, anything that's like awkward to build around, I put more weighting on that than I do in PvP because it's more like designed for people who don't necessarily have a huge collection. Anyway, next one we have Spiker Stone. Now this one, oh my god, it was so bad when it came out. They've since buffed it, making the seconds lower cost and giving it I think maybe both the passives, I'm not even sure. But yeah, this one also indirectly buffing. So this is part of a cycle for the hedgehogs. There are 4 hedgehogs. We'll see them over across these videos. This is the first one, and it's probably the least exciting one. However, it also brings about the strongest combo. So the reason why this is D in PvP and not F, as it used to be, is because the Storm one is like the big payoff of using the hedgehogs. So the Storm one has moves that it can use based on which hedgehog it's used with. And when it's used with this one, it has a 99% speed, 50-second knockback, which is insane. So yeah, that's the reason why it's D in PvP. And if you use this with the Storm one, you can pull off some pretty cool stuff. And otherwise, it's just got really bad knockback attacks. I mean, knockback random is a good move, but at such slow speed, and such low speed, and also it hasn't really got good defense. That knockback random is not that great. And then the other ones are both random knockbacking, so like in reality you don't want to use them. So yeah, this monster's pretty bad. It's just like it's got that one broken combo, which we'll talk about more in the Storm video. So next up we have Vine Gazer. Now this one is awesome. I love this monster. It took me a little while before I loved it. I misread it when I first saw it and thought it's completely broken, and then I realised that Germinate move has a one use limit. So this monster is all about making more of itself in your team and lots of Vine Eyes in the enemy team. The Vine Eye being the first form of it, that little cute pumpkin thing. Now the Vine Eye, what it has is just simply risky heal, which has a 40% chance to die. And so ultimately what it does is it just sits there and it just spams that heal and tries to kill itself off. So it sits there on the field for a while. Then what you have here is a monster which ultimately what you want to do with it is you want to turn a teammate into another Vine Gazer. Then once you've got 2, they can use the Germinate move, which turns an enemy into that Vine Eye that's then going to sit there as a random token and try to get rid of itself. And then the Vine Gazers can remove themselves with the risky heal all, which has a better chance of dying. So you turn the battle into like a really slow back and forth where you turn all the enemies into Vine Eyes, you turn your team into Vine Gazers, and you're both trying to kill off your own team so you can actually get something in that can be used, and you want to get to the next monster so you can sprout conversion that into a Vine Gazer to then germinate a new enemy. Now, I was slightly doubtful about this working until I actually realised how to make it work. What you want to do is use this with like stun. So you want to use it with, like, say, knockback stuff at the beginning. So you remove the enemy stun protection, then you start sprout conversioning things with, like, say, stun revenge, or you do it with, like, you've got stunning entrance monsters as well. So when you use the risky heal, you manage to get rid of one of your Vine Gazers, the stunning entrance comes in, stuns the enemies, then you sprout conversion the stunning entrance enemy and monster, and you keep the chain going. Now, the importance of the stun there is that it slows down the enemy team enough that you can start using the risky heal law to kill off your own team faster than they can kill off their Vine Eyes with risky heal. So naturally they will be slower, but with that stun it just makes it a much higher chance that they'll be slower, and you'll be able to keep the chain going. There's also some other stuff in there with, like, say, Aura Dragon, or you can use, say, Cosmo Dragon or Nebelronix, which then have it shields a team when you sprout conversion it. And there's some other stuff in there which you can do. I actually made a post about it on the forum, but I'll probably make a video about it later anyway. So this is a really cool design monster that only really works in PvE, where you can build a team around it and use it for that kind of combo. The reason why you'd want to do that is because it can just instantly kill enemies despite their buff. So massively buffed enemies you can use this for. And if you're looking for an ultimate challenge strategy that doesn't revolve around, say, Aura Dragon or, loads of Death Revenge and you don't have that stuff, Vine Gazer might be the solution for you. If you can build around that with some stun, which stun is far more accessible, you can make a pretty good team. It does rely on RNG, but it's usable. So next we move on to the Legendaries. This first Legendary, Cyclozar, I will say the screenshot is older. It's since had its seconds reduced to 160, and that's what I'm really going to talk about here, because this is like Cyclozar, the normal one that's in water, but with all the moves becoming piercing. However, all the moves became 200 seconds from 70 seconds. which is just a nightmare. Like, 200 seconds is way too much. Now, with them at 160, I do think it's somewhat viable. 160 is kind of like, okay, I can deal with this. With any give turn, it's going to be great. And what's really nice here is the high speed. So you can have this in the front line. It can do the breaker move, kill a particular key monster, and then you remove it or whatever you want to do with it afterwards. Whether you backstab it or you give turn to it to kill off another thing and then you backstab it or whatever. It's going to be fine on the field as well. You could just leave it there and keep killing things with it. I don't think it's as strong as Cyclozar. I don't think it's anywhere near as strong as Cyclozar, but it has niche uses there and is slightly better at like dealing with one-on-one and that kind of thing. The main thing that I think gives it power is the secret skill. So the secret skill, compared to Cyclozar, which has exit plan, can't use that for the first like 50 seconds or something of the battle. Maybe it's 100 seconds, I'm not sure exactly. And so you can't use the first turn. Shiny Cyclozar, however, has retreat, which it can use on the first turn. So it's quite nice for having the front line if you want that high-speed entrance control to bring in a new monster and do stuff, while also having the flexibility that in those instances where you either can't retreat or you don't want to retreat because you need to deal with something, you can deal with something. You've got 4 different killer moves here that are piercing. They will absolutely deal with whatever it is that you need to deal with if that has a killer weakness. So quite cool in that respect. I think while my tier list ratings of this are low, it's definitely usable in some teams. People will definitely want to use it. So don't sleep on it, and it will be annoying when you meet it. Jack of Scorp is the next one. This one came out in the Halloween, as you can guess, just like the Vine Gazer, which was also a pumpkin. So this is super tanky. Now this is a cool monster, I like it a lot. However, I will say in practice it's a little bit awkward because if it's not on high health and it doesn't have that fighting spirit boost, it really struggles to do damage. But ultimately the design of it is not that obvious. What you really want to do is use the secret skill. So if you just look at the moves themselves, I'll get to the secret skill in a second. What you've got the Poison Eater move, which is 100 seconds rather than... actually, sorry, that's been increased. But anyway, it's got the Raw Poison Eater. When you've got kills, you've got Bloodthirst, which doesn't matter about you don't need the attack increase for that. And then you've otherwise got a counter to poison with Detox Bite, or you can use, if you can't use any of those moves, you can Mutual Poison Touch to Poison Touch an enemy, and then set up the Detox Bite. That's kind of how it looks, and you've got that with Stun Immunity, with High Defense, and it can have good attack as well if it's on high health. That's how it looks, and a lot of people looked at this and they weren't that impressed. I like it because I think the fact that it's got high defense is quite underrated. But that said, it's also really annoying because if anyone hits it down from high health, then it becomes a bit of a deadweight. It can't do that much. And that's where the secret skill comes in. And ultimately, I think what you want to do for this monster is build around the secret skill, absolutely. So what you do is you use it with a teammate that has either Poison Revenge or probably, hopefully, Poison All Revenge. And then on this monster's first turn, which, bear in mind, it's 53% speed, it's not too bad. On its first turn, you want to instant backbite that teammate, which poisons the whole field. So then it sets up both Detox Bite and Raw Poison Eater, and also fully heals Jack of Scorp, so Jack of Scorp will do good damage. So that means as soon as this monster gets a turn, it can kill that off, set up its other move, and get 2 kills, and be on full health, and then from there it can Bloodthirst. It doesn't matter if its health goes down, because Bloodthirst will do enough damage. That's what I think you're meant to do with this monster, and where it will be most effective. And then it also means with the instant backbite, you can kill off a deadweight thing or a token or whatever. Probably won't have Poison Revenge, but if you're using with other poison, then that might not be a problem because enemies might be poisoned already. So I think this monster is being slept on quite a bit. I think it has a lot of use in poison teams and should be good. I think this is a great frontline monster because people are going to have a hard time to kill this before its first turn. It's so tanky and it's stun immune, so you can't really disable it, get it out the way that easily, and it can instantly full heal itself when it gets a turn. So it's not like they can hit it down a bit and then it will not have the damage. So yeah, really cool monster. I don't think it's super powerful, but I think it's definitely good. This next monster, less good. Mark has quite a few things going for it, but I'm not totally impressed by some Mark monsters, just like this one. So it's very tanky, and it's got poison immunity like all the Mark monsters. Pretty much all the Mark monsters have poison immunity. That seems to be their thing in that archetype. And ultimately what it wants to do is have it self-marked, so it can use Mark Crush Double and kill 2 things. Otherwise it can mark the enemies and corner snipe them. So yeah, it can get kills. It can piercing sweep and all the rest of it. But I do think that it's a little too awkward to do. It's a little too slow, basically. Like, it's too slow to its first turn. It will then have one random enemy set up to be killed, which you may have already killed by that point, or it may not be the enemy you need to kill at that point, so then you've got to mark to set it up. Like, this really wants to be used with other Mark monsters. I think when we hit a critical mass of Mark monsters, then this kind of stuff will be good, because it's like, this guy comes in, he has no killer weaknesses, he's poison immune, he's tanky, and then it's just going to start piercing kills when he gets turns, or setting up your other monsters to kill things. Like, that's when it will be good, but at this point we haven't reached that point. We don't have enough Mark monsters, so this is just a bit too slow to kill things. Next up we have Roccolossus. This is very cool. I've got it rated high because I think the potential here is enormous. This is a mortar monster that's also raw, and ultimately it's very tanky. It's very hard to get rid of because it's going to come in, get a turn soon and shield itself, and then it's also got the hold ground and hardened carapace, so it's going to have a really high defense. I love the tankiness of this monster, and also it's got the healing reload as well. It's not going to go down easily. It's got the piercing mortar, so it's a great mortar sweeper. If you can load this with any other teammates, it's going to do a great job. And it actually only needs 1 kill. This is one of the few instances where a mortar monster has a blood move. So you only really need 1 kill on this, and then you can start using the blood move. And then Raw Overwatch obviously works very nicely on any mortar monster because they shield themselves. So yeah, really, really good here. The only thing is, like all mortar monsters, is it's a bit slow to get going. But I think in any mortar team, or just otherwise, if you can build it in a way that this isn't killed off quickly, or if it's left alone at all, I think it's going to really get going and work well. I like this monster a lot, but I may be overrating a little bit because it's my kind of monster. Next up we have Shiny Tridracan. This is a huge upgrade over normal Tridracan. I love it a lot, and the main thing going for this here is the secret skill. Swift Dual Catapult, 80 seconds, piercing kill 2 enemies. Oh my god, so powerful. Like, this is seen on, I think it's Bahamazar that has it, but Bahamazar is like 30% speed. This is 62% speed. As long as the stun doesn't backfire, this should be getting a turn and killing 2 enemies with piercing. Like, this is very good for that. I think it will be a great addition for a lot of PvP teams. However, the thing is, you really need to use this in Link Earth. Well, that secret skill doesn't have the requirement of it. Like, you could just slap this in a team and use it for that. You then can't do much more after that, so you'd have to like kill it off with a teammate or something. And is that really worth it? I don't know. So you want this in Link Earth because then you can use the Link Poison Eater. A 50-second move is really, really good. Now, bear in mind, this doesn't have high attack. That Link Poison Eater is not going to one-shot things. It will two-shot things, tanky things it will three-shot. So it's not going to be some mad sweeper that it looks like, but definitely very good in a Link Earth team. If you can support it with any poison, then it's going to work well. So this really pushes the Link Earth poison archetype that's starting to really come out in last year and then this year. So now we move on to Mythics. First up we have Arachno Drake. Now this I've put in the middle tiers. This is actually one of the few Mythics in the game that goes up to 17 cost with the secret skill. So I don't know, maybe I'm underrating this, and it's certainly a decent sweeper with piercing stuff going on. It's got poison immunity and it stealths itself quickly, but ultimately I'm not super impressed because all it does is well, the thing is it doesn't only do sweeping because it has Toxic Thirst is effectively a Purify All, just an upgraded version. But anyway, so I'm just saying that because I don't want to misrepresent this and say, oh, it's mediocre or it's rubbish. This might actually be very, very good, but unfortunately I'm not super experienced with Mythics. So anyway, What this guy does is he enters, he stealths the entire field, both your team and the opponent's team, and then he, while stealthed, has piercing, and then has both stealth bane and sneak attack. So he sets up sneak attack for himself because he's stealth when he enters. If they remove that stealth, then it doesn't really matter because you can still stealth bane any enemy. The only issue there is that whether or not, do you want to have the piercing on him. So yeah, really cool sweeper, works nicely, other than the fact that it has to be raw in order to do the stealth. So it's not like you can just hide it behind something and have it as a good sweeper behind a protector. Also the secret skill, both link and raw, kind of funny, and also because the entrance, when he enters, he stealths all the enemies, so you can't actually use the secret skill immediately and kill all the enemies. But it does mean that in the front line, it is possible to, say with like, I don't know, Dracarosa, you could use Purify and Mist, you could stealth him at the beginning when there aren't stealthed enemies, and then, so you don't actually use his entrance, and then you just use the secret skill and piercing kill all the enemies, which is pretty cool. So this guy is quite a nice sweeper. Toxic Thirst, I should mention as well, I guess. Basically it hits all the other enemies, including your teammates, and it's like a Poison Massacre. So, Poison Massacre, like, it does more damage based on how many things are poisoned to all the enemies that are affected. So if all enemies are affected, if all enemies are poisoned, when you use Toxic Thirst, it will do quite decent damage. If Arachnid Drake is stealthed, it will do even better damage. Your teammates, it also does more damage, but only based on your teammates being poisoned. So if, say, you have one teammate poisoned, and then all the enemies are poisoned, it will do massive damage to the enemies, but it will only do very minor damage to that poisoned teammate. And then to the, actually I should say, yes, the one difference from Poison Massacre is that it will kind of, Poison Massacre, it will only hit the poisoned enemies. Toxic Thirst, it will be like, okay, how many of these enemies are poisoned, and then that's how much damage is being done to all of them. So it doesn't matter specifically which ones are poisoned, it's just the total number of poisoned monsters. So with your teammates, like, if you have one poisoned, then all of them take a little bit of damage. Toxic Thirst, ultimately, it's not very powerful. It's mainly like a Purify All kind of thing, because it removes poison from your teammates. It can get rid of stealth, that kind of stuff, and it heals Arachnid Drake. That's the main thing, is it heals Arachnid Drake. So yeah, that's how that works. Cool little sweeper. I think it's nice design, other than like there's the raw and link stuff in there. But yeah, we'll have to see if it's actually really good in the long run. Bastia now, oh god, where to start with Bastia? So Bastia, when it came out, was the most broken monster in the whole game that's ever been seen. Like, people talk about Zip Gazer in the past, which was Death Gazer. Its entrance could be used in the front line and stuff. I would say that's not as strong as Bastia. Like, Zip Gazer was nasty. It was very nasty, and it could win games. But Bastia, like, full on, just breaks the game. So the thing people freaked out about was Serene Field. That passive, negating all entrance effects, is ridiculously strong. However, what was really broken about Bastia when she came out was her secret skill. You can see here it's Sacrifice Summon X, but what it was originally was Instant Double Repulse. So basically, Bastia has no killer weaknesses. She has the highest health and defense in the game and hold ground, and as soon as she gets a turn, what she could do was repulse 2 enemies and then knock back a third. That was ridiculously good when you had no entrances happening, so you could basically completely disrupt the enemy team, like resetting blood moves, all the rest of it, like completely mess them up, and then mean that they don't have any way to get back into the game because they can't have entrances happen. There are also some things which just really depend on an entrance, or a team that depends on an entrance at the beginning, that by doing that it will just really mess up their strategy. And then obviously she can do all the healing and shielding stuff and purifying. There was just way too much power in that. She also had a double strength survivor, so you could even use her in combos like with Cyberith. So use that, and then it overwatches them all. Bastia has hold ground itself, so it's nice with that. As soon as she gets touched, then she just comes in. She has the repulsing, so even though the enemies are overwatched, it doesn't matter because you could just repulse them and then knock back the other one, and then it's like, oh well, they come in without overwatch now, so they don't have that awkward thing to get around. She was beautiful with Cyberith. So yeah, what they did to nerf her was they removed instant double repulse, and Gave her a sacrifice secret skill, which is kind of a joke. I mean, it's good for throw teams, and if you want to get rid of her for your own entrances and stuff, but like in comparison, it's a joke. And then they removed Survivor for assisted stone, so she has like very limited disruption now and no damage potential. But what she does have is a faster knockback random. It's 130 rather than 160, and she has crazy healing moves. That Goddess's Protection fully heals and purifies your team and also applies a shield to them. Oh my god, insane. And so, yeah, she's a really, really cool healer with the passive that disables entrance passives. She is one of the best monsters in the game, despite having two major aspects of her removed. And she basically turns PvE into easy mode, because you just don't have much to worry about. Most of the things that will come back at you in a match are revolving around entrance effects. Like there's revenge stuff too, but like usually it's entrance effects that are going to really impact a battle, and she turns them all off. So yeah, very, very powerful. In PvP, people have started to say, oh, she's not actually as insane because of that nerf. She's not broken. She's just very, very strong. So yeah, can play a big part in battles. Anyway, one of the strongest mythics we've ever seen. Next we have another incredibly strong one. Now, I originally overrated this for PvP. I think this is godlike in PvE, but PvP, it's not actually that insane. So this revolves around the passive Art of Taiji, which means that it flips back and forth on its health every time it takes a turn. So the main important thing here is to never get on to either 1 HP or full HP. So you need something to bring her down from full HP at the beginning, and then you can just start going to town with sweeping moves every 50 seconds, just flipping back and forth, killing something. Now, why I think this is godlike in PvE is because you can skip. So as long as she doesn't get hit by piercing or poisoned or that kind of thing, you can always skip to avoid something. So say, okay, what I'm trying to say here is like, if you would do the 50-second move, and then you can see in that little window, well, it's actually 42 seconds, that she'll be hit to hold ground and then killed off, what you can do is just go, okay, well, I'm going to skip behind that first monster, get hit to hold ground, and then I'm going to do the move, and then I'm going to get hit again, and, maybe it'll put me to hold ground or whatever, but, like, you can keep her alive much better like that. In PvP, people can play around her a lot of the time. It does require having, like, moves in quick succession, or it could be stunning her or something like that, poisoning her maybe. But yeah, there's enough stuff that people can play around her. She's not insane, but she's definitely very strong. And then yeah, I don't really need to talk through the moves. The secret skill, I don't get that at all. Like, that's pointless. Protector conversion. Why would you make that when you've got Raw Blood, Fury and True Hit that you can't use with a protector on the field? Yeah, anyway, so basically she's got 50-second sweeping moves, and you just use her for that. She's crazy sweeper. Now we go to a much less exciting mythics. We talked about the two very powerful mythics. Now we're on to the more normal end stuff mythics. So this has low defense, low speed. Never a good start for any monster. I'm very down on monsters with low defense and low speed. I find that typically they just don't work so well. It does have hold ground though, and it does have a way to heal in Devour. What's really cool about this is the conscription passive. So every time this gets a kill, you get a Rockoid at the back of the team. When you get 2 kills from, say, double catapult, then you get 2 rocks at the back of the team. So this can generate rocks, or otherwise just not really ever use them up. So that's very cool. I like that a lot as design. So it's got second wind to keep itself alive. Very nice. What's really good is the raw throw being 50 seconds. Now, I wasn't sure before making this video whether I'd include like recent updates and stuff, because that's now been increased to 100 seconds. I think in this case I will include it, because I think that does change this quite a bit. But anyway, the damage from double catapult and raw throw is very good. It will one-shot things easily with those. So basically this just goes to town with sweeping. The problem is that it doesn't have anything that's too aggressive. Like, double catapult at 200 seconds is a lot. That's just so much. And then raw throw at 100 seconds, that's good, but like, you get countered by hold ground and shields, that kind of stuff, because if you don't have enough rocks, you're only going to make the rocks if you if you get the kills. But I think that's less of an issue because this monster does, you'd use it in a throw team, so you'd probably have those rocks available. You don't need to make a rock every single move. But anyway, yeah, pretty cool monster. I've seen people using it with Leogeist, using Inspire on it, so that that low speed doesn't matter so much, and then with the whole ground it being overwatched, it's going to get that turn. And it also means that if, say, it gets to use double catapult, this is the way people really like to use it, is you inspire it, use double catapult, get 2 kills, and then you have a monster next in line with lava entrance that when it enters, it's going to hit everything slightly, trigger your own overwatch, and then it gets a turn and does double catapult. I think that works. Not entirely sure though, but yeah, I think that works. So that's how people like to use it, and how they get around those high second moves. But otherwise, yeah, it's a reasonable monster, just nothing too crazy. So the next monster, we have to look first of all at a couple of monsters because it makes them as tokens. Mr. Bun is not a new monster, but yeah, let's have a quick look at these tokens before we can really understand what we're going to be looking at on the Mythic. So Mr. Bun, very high speed, actual kind of reasonable defense, but anyway, very high speed is the problem here. It comes in, gets a turn very fast, it's very hard to counter for the opponent, and then it can do one of 2 things. Either sacrifice itself and damage all the enemies, which is actually very good damage, or sacrifice itself and heal the team. So Mr. Bun, it does damage to enemies or heals the team. Then we have Mrs. Bun. Mrs. Bun is quite a bit lower speed, which is important to note, and then she can either shield, yes, it is the whole team, she can shield the team, or if some time has passed, she can sacrifice herself to put the entire battlefield to sleep. Now, of the 2, basically Mr. Bun is the stronger one. Mrs. Bun is a very niche kind of thing. Like, yeah, shields are good, but I'd prefer the heal maybe in a lot of cases. And the low speed on Mrs. Bun makes it a bit of a problem. Sleep Bomb, I can't really see that ever being used. Like, if she gets stunned and then gets a turn late and then could Sleep Bomb maybe, but she's mainly for the shield. So now we look at the Mythic that's actually going to make them. This is Medbay. I don't like this Mythic, I'm just going to straight up say it. Second form, it has Confident Strike, which is just shit on this monster. But anyway, this is low speed, low defense again. I should have said that first, of course I'm biased against that. I don't like low speed, low defense. But anyway, that's how it is. And then when it enters, it fully heals, so blah blah blah, whatever, fine. Overconfident Strike, it charges that. That's going to one-shot basically everything other than like super buff monsters. So that's nice, except for the fact that they've got a lot of time and it's quite squishy to reduce it below 70%, so then it can't do that. And that's the only damaging move. So what it does is it then swaps itself out either for a Mr. Bun or a Mrs. Bun. Now luckily those are limitless moves, so you can keep doing that. And importantly, you can do it to Mr. Bun, then Mr. Bun comes in, can damage all the enemies, and then Medbay comes back in, and the actual full seconds that pass during that time compared to Overconfident Strike are actually very similar. So what you can really think about this as is that when Medbay gets a turn, she can either pierce and kill one enemy, or she can fully heal the team, or she can damage all the enemies by a good amount. Those are kind of the main 3 options really, and what you're really looking at when you are using her. I do think on the lower form, the second form, basically you just want to spam Juice of Hand and keep using the Mr. Bun to damage the enemies or heal your team. It's probably how it's going to work best with that. And then the last move there, Full House. This is like a team turn that you can use twice, but you can only do it with the Mr. Bun or Mrs. Bun on the field. It's a bit awkward. I think ultimately what you're looking at is what I just described before then. The secret skill is very odd. I really wasn't sure what this was going on about to begin with. And then, so yeah, basically what it does is it's for use at the end of the team. So if Medbay gets stuck at the end of your team, you don't have any teammates, so you can't use Juice of Hand or Sleight of Hand, she's on low health, like she's just useless. So the secret skill is a last ditch effort. If you have to, you can create some box jaws, so then you can start using Juice of Hand and Sleight of Hand. That's how it works there. We're now moving into the third section, and this video has been going on quite a while, so I'm going to rush over this stuff a little bit more than I will maybe do in the other videos. So we've got the themes that we're looking at here, and where those new monsters fit into there. Obviously we've got the Mortar Monster and Mortar theme, we've got one new protector, not much going on there, but there aren't many protectors anyway, so that fits. There's some stuff for the Retribution. Good thing to point out here is the Jackascorp with the instant backbite, which I think is the best way to play it. That's going to trigger Retribution, so that's really quite nice for fitting in with that archetype. And Medbee, she fits in with the Retribution because if she's using the swapping out for Mr. Bun, which then Mr. Bun comes in, sacrifices itself, that's going to trigger Retribution. So I think that could actually be some, there could be some potential there. Throw theme, there's a few things for that. We haven't done a whole lot for throw this year, which is kind of fine because it's a well-developed strategy. The thing that's really got support this year is the poison sub-theme. 4 monsters for that. Vine Gazer, maybe, you're not really going to use that, but ultimately Jackascorp and the shiny Tradocan are going to do a lot, and Musashoid is pretty decent there too. So some really solid monsters for Link Earth Poison. I think that's what's got the most support this year. In terms of the power of the monsters, this what we're looking at here is like where I've kind of roughly put them in my tier list. It's just a rough guide. I mean, all my tier list stuff is kind of just me trying to give you a rough idea of how strong things are. So what we've got really is actually not a whole lot of support for Earth this year. While we've got the numbers, a lot of new monsters, there's actually not too many standout monsters, other than those 2 mythics, the Karina and Bastia. Those are the 2 incredibly powerful mythics, but otherwise the other mythics were, relatively mediocre. The legendaries, there was, what's it called, the mortal one, Roccolossus. That one for me was a standout, but otherwise there's not huge power in those legendaries, and the super epics as well, not much power in those. So this is what we're looking at. I would say compared to the other elements, Earth was kind of more in the middle range, despite getting some more monsters, more on the higher end of the number of monsters. I think Earth got more mediocre support this year compared to the other elements. So where does Earth stand? Well, basically it's just generally really powerful. I said this last year with all the new monsters that have come into it. It is powerful. It really stands up with the other elements. We saw that the statistic there at the beginning with the Link team's special rule in PvP, it was up there at the top, and even without Kanashogun, it would have been near the top. It's got good support. There are a few different archetypes that work well in it. It's had a number of healing options added this year, which I think fits with it very nicely. The fact that it's kind of a really tanky element, as in having those super tanks, having healing fits it very nicely. It was something that I was hoping we'd see, and it fits with like the whole original throw strategy, where it had sacrifice heal and stuff. That's the last point. Earth is strong in general with its array of sweeping and support monster strategies. Yeah, so that's generally how it works. Is it's going to do sweeping, bit of support, protectors, that kind of stuff. It doesn't really have the normal control stuff like stun and sleep. There's a little bit of it, but it's mainly using other things to get the wins. And I like that. I really like that it is differentiated from some of the other elements. What does it need? Well, I would say it doesn't need too much. Most of the elements this year, in this section of the video, where I talk about what it needs, I don't think there's that much which I'm that desperate for in many of the elements. But I do think that this healing stuff could really have a little bit more with it, and it could be rather than like fully healing. Well, let's just read. I can't remember what I wrote here. Healing small amounts could be tied to poison. So what I'm thinking about there is like the poison siphon stuff. I think it might be cool to see that kind of thing. And then also, I would quite like some kind of control potential that's unique to Earth. So this boosting effectiveness of protectors idea, I think, would be quite cool. They have obviously good protectors. You could say Arachnodiva kind of boosts the effectiveness of protectors because the scapegoat move is very much like we're going to use protectors in an effective way. But yeah, anyway, that's something which I would like to see improved a bit. So that's it for this video. That was the Earth one. It's quite a long haul. The other ones aren't going to be as long as this. I think last year I was over an hour for this video as well, so it's no surprise that I've gone just over with that. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, do check out the other ones. They'll be coming out pretty soon. This video is coming out on Thursday, You know, if you're watching it on the day, it's a Thursday, but the other ones are going to be coming out. I'm aiming them for the Monday of next week is going to be the fire one, and then it's going to be every Monday for the next few weeks after that. So yeah, I hope you enjoy watching them. Hope you enjoy seeing my face in a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon.